A lot of business professionals tend to dunk on Excel, and it's not without its reason. Now, Excel, I think when people tend to get annoyed by it, it's not because of it's the root cause of all of your problems within the organization. You're actually complaining about the symptoms. Now, let me explain. The thing is with Excel is that it allows you to be fast. It allows you to spin up a workbook and just create formulas and encode business logic into your workbook. Now, what you've got to remember is that every time you put in a little piece of a formula or a little piece of logic within an Excel workbook, that is now a codified piece of business logic. Now, this is where it gets really annoying for BI professionals, because they get given a workbook with like 1,000 formulas inside it. And the annoying thing is that these aren't formulas that just live in their own little space. They're interdependent. And it gets even worse when you've got these formulas that are dependent within one workbook, and then they go to another, and then they go to another. Then you end up having this huge spaghetti of business logic encoded across multiple workbooks within Excel. Now, it's not Excel that's the problem. It gives you the ability to add these formulas, and of course, why wouldn't you? It's the fact that people just make them and stop thinking about them. Now, let me give you an example. The problem lives in the fact that it's much easier to add new logic than it is to edit new logic. Nobody really edits a formula. People are too scared of breaking something that depends on that formula. So instead, they patch, and then they build. It's the path of least resistance. They add a new column, a new tab, they maybe spill up a new workbook. And all that does is it compensates for the fact that something's wrong 3 layers down. The workbook grows, or the system grows, not through careful design, but through accretion. You might have heard of the saying that slow is fast and fast is slow. When it comes to formulas and when it comes to encoding business logic and when it comes to creating systems that work and people trust, that is the case. And eventually, you hit a boiling point. The spreadsheet becomes so layered with patchwork that it just becomes easier to nuke the whole thing and start right over again, and the cycle continues. Now, if this all sounds really abstract, this is really how it plays out. Let's say I'm just calculating margin or something. So I'm just taking the revenue, the cost of goods sold, and I'm calculating my margin. Fantastic, super easy, super clean. But then someone says, hey, we need to adjust for shipping. Okay, well, we bring in the shipping formula, and now we've got an adjusted margin that includes shipping. Okay, it kind of grows, but logically so. But then it comes into discounts and promotions. On some sales or on some orders, we apply a discount, or we add a voucher, or we even get a shipping discount or a shipping voucher. Okay, well, now we think of shipping voucher columns, the discount columns, and also the normal voucher columns. Now we add that to the medley of patchwork that we have. And then we get into the tax issue. Now we're selling to the UK, we're selling to the US, we now have a product library, and these are now dependent on the revenue figures that we've calculated in the initial workbook. Now, if this was a well-designed and well-thought-out system, what we would do is we'd actually go back to the original workbook and think, wow, how can we re-architect this to make this work for our growing needs? In reality, what happens, people just add and add and add and add, and then we get to the point where people can add no longer because they don't have space, they don't have the cognitive capacity to understand where to add, and they don't know where the real truth lies. This almost gets to the point of the workbook life cycle where the CFO or the CTO asks a question and the confidence of what is inside that workbook just completely falls off a cliff. And this takes me to the point of my argument where this is the reason why BI professionals don't like Excel so much, is because the friction is necessary. When it comes to creating transformations, when it comes to creating data pipelines, when it comes to encoding business logic, it's good that it's governed, it's good that it's version controlled, and it's good that it takes a little bit of time and thought to make, because if it doesn't, people just keep adding until we end up with a mess. A SQL-based system, or a system which requires a little bit of technical know-how and a little bit of thought, requires you to confront your business logic head-on, forces you to understand the business decisions that are being made, why they are being made, and whether the decisions and the logic still holds. They force you to step back from the problem instead of just adding another formula into the pile. Like, why are we deducting shipping from totals? What good does it do to create a column that considers returned orders? In a spreadsheet, you just do it because it might be useful to Derek from accounts. All of this is just a symptom of the root cause, which is rapid creation of business logic with no frameworks or mechanisms to review, govern, and edit what's already been put in place. And this is the last point. It's not Excel's fault. Excel was never meant to be a governed analytics platform. But when organizations treat it like one, they end up with a mess of formulas and logic that practicably are impossible to unpick. So in my eyes, good, steady progress will always outrun the fast, fragile process, but only if the organization has the patience to let it happen.